US President Barack Obama arrives in Japan today to hash out a trade agreement that will affect nearly 40% of the global economy. Talks seem to have lost momentum, but the president will spend a week touring Asia, trying to kickstart the process. You're watching Dukascopy TV. I'm Sophia Aribo, bringing you more on this story in today's press review. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, is a trade agreement made up of a dozen Pacific Rim countries. Tariffs and other barriers to open markets would be reduced between TPP member countries. The deal would also establish standards on a variety of issues affecting trade and international competition. For instance, negotiators are working to set up rules on intellectual property rights. TPP talks are being led by the US. Combined, the other 11 TPP countries are America's fourth largest export market, worth nearly $81 billion. TPP has the potential to boost US exports and investments by eliminating or lowering tariffs and giving America greater access to large or rapidly growing markets. But it's a controversial deal, which has sparked protests in a number of countries. For example, sensitive issues between Japan and the US are beef imports, farming, and the car industry. And American critics say there's been a lack of transparency and that TPP won't set very high standards to protect the environment and labour rights. Seeing disagreements between Tokyo and Japan as the major stumbling block, trade expert Deborah Elms says, as soon as the Japan-US bilateral gets resolved, the dominoes are in place for the last parts of the agreement to fall in line. Europe will be closely watching how negotiations pan out, as efforts are underway to put together a similar deal between the US and the EU. It's hoped the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, known as TTIP, can be worked out before the end of next year. But this deal has also led to protests in the US and across EU member countries. That's all for today's press review. Thanks for watching, and make sure you tune in tomorrow for another edition of Press Review with Ben Jones.